Okay, so I want to make sure we all understand what your testimony has been here today. So we had the first request to TSSB in the fall of 2019. Was any information disclosed to Nate Paul as a result of OAG's ruling?
No.
Then we move on to the big request to DPS in the spring of 2020. Was any information released to Nate Paul as a result of that ruling?
No.
And then we get to this third request. And what we see is that the FBI provided a copy of the brief directly to the requester itself. Is that right?
Objection,
right. Leading.
Oh.
Overruled. Repeat the question and answer.
We get to this FBI request for their blacked out brief. And what we see is that the FBI directly gives a copy of the brief to the requester,
Objection.
to Nate Paul. Is that correct?
Objection, Your Honor. It should be made clear for the record that we are talking about two different briefs, one in May and one in June. And the one in June, yes, there's no dispute. The FBI provided that to Nate Paul's counsel. That is not the one that contains the sensitive information that we have been discussing.
Clarify.
Of course.
I sustain the objection. Clarify.
What we're seeing from this file is that the FBI provided a copy of its June 2020 brief directly to Mr. Larson. Is that right?
Yes, that's correct.
And you've also testified that that June 2020 brief is very similar to the May 2020 redacted brief, right?
Yes, that is correct.
In your conversation with Ken Paxton about this particular DPS file, can you recall any other time when Mr. Paxton directly came to you and got involved on a DPS open records request?
No.
Explain to the jury, explain to the public. We're trying to explain the work of the Office of the Attorney General today, so explain what it was like to be working on these issues during COVID.
It was intense. It was a demanding time, as I'm sure it was for a lot of people in this room. We were on the cutting edge of a lot of novel legal issues. A lot of folks were looking to the AG's office for guidance and direction on how to respond, how to navigate the challenges that were coming forward, especially as it pertained to the governor's executive orders, which were coming out. We were often looked to for guidance on how to comply with those, what they meant construing them, and we fielded those requests from all corners.
Was it unusual during that time to have expedited requests or to be working on short deadlines?
That is never unusual at the OAG, under any circumstances.
Particularly so during COVID?
Sure, particularly so.
Are you aware of the Attorney General's office internal report regarding the events underlying this impeachment proceeding?
Yes.
And broadly speaking, what is that report as you understand it?
That report is the findings of a 10-month investigation that was conducted internally at the Office of the Attorney General concerning the allegations that the whistleblowers raised.
Did you ever review that report?
I did.
How many times? What was the nature of your review?
Two, no more than 3 times. I was provided a copy and asked for general feedback on the document, proposed edits, revisions, things along those lines.
Were you ever directed by anyone to make sure that the report was a sham?
No.
Were you ever directed to make sure it included false or misleading statements?
Absolutely not.
Are you aware of anyone else receiving such a direction?
Absolutely not.
What would you have done if you had identified a false or misleading statement in that report when you reviewed it?
If I had identified a false and or misleading statement, I would have immediately raised that issue to the folks who are working on the report for consideration.
Your opinion on the Office of the Attorney General report being truthful is irrelevant to this proceeding because you will not address the statements within it. Is that accurate?
I don't agree with the question as you phrased it.
Okay. Will you tell the ladies and gentlemen of the Senate whether you did or did not provide us any document in regards to Ken Paxton's Proton or Signal account?
We did not provide any documents related to a Proton or Signal account.
Mr. Kinghorn, do you know if any proton mail or signal documents that would be responsive to their subpoena exist?
I do not.
Did you conduct a diligent search for those documents on behalf of the Office of the Attorney General?
I conducted a diligent search of all documents that we had in our custody and control.
Do you have an obligation to produce documents that don't exist and that aren't in your possession, custody, or control?
I do not.
Do you have any personal knowledge of any vast criminal conspiracies involving misuse of OAG resources?
I have no such knowledge.
If there were such a conspiracy, would you still be working at the Attorney General's office?
No, I would not. I accepted promotion in this agency at a very critical time, and I assured myself and assured my wife if there were ever anything that I saw that were illegal or
There's my
unethical,
friend.
I would step away.
Hi,
And
Marcelo.
I'm still here. I'm proud of the work we do. I'm proud to serve General Paxton. I'm proud to be part of this agency.